From the fantasy armchair, it is the Fantasy Tyrant.
Hey there, fellow fantasy football freaks. After a longer than expected hiatus, welcome back to the Fantasy Armchair, and a bittersweet way to begin this new season with one of the all-time greats, a legend among legends in TV, movies, comedy, and one of my personal longtime idols, Mr. Paul Reubens, better known as Pee Wee Herman, unfortunately passed from cancer after a 6-year-long private battle. For a lot of us who grew up watching his show, this is gonna hurt big, but we'll always remember the two biggest lessons that he taught us. Never stop being a kid at heart, and never give up on your dreams. There wouldn't be any Fantasy Tyrant if there wasn't a Pee Wee's Playhouse. Now, if this didn't come out the day he died, I have a little more material on him. I'll have more about him in the future. I'm actually gonna do a mixed notes where it's gonna be completely dedicated to him. So stay tuned for that. I'm gonna be drinking this bad boy down at the end of this episode in his honor. So grab a beer and join me. Anyway, hope you all been well. The football season's creeping closer and closer. And that means we're closer to the fantasy football season. A lot of drafts are going on right now. A little bit early maybe, but a lot of us hardcore fantasy footballers, we're drafted all throughout the summer. And some even in the spring. But either way, it's time now to prepare for the 2023 season. Now, like I told you at the end of last year, I'm going to be stripping things down a bit during the regular season. But for your preseason draft, I ain't cutting any corners. I'm going to be working hard behind the scenes to try to get the money necessary to actually do a proper show. The thing is, you guys like the show so much that this show grew and grew, and now it's bigger than my own means. So I'm on a mission to get all the money that I need, to get all the equipment, to get the crew, a proper studio, a proper space to do this, etc., so I can make sure to do this show right in the future. In the meantime, yeah, it's going to be a little bit stripped down. I'm still going to have all the fantasy advice you're going to need to win and crush your league. So during the regular season, I'm not going to do as many shows. I might consider doing the top 10 waiver wire picks, because that's a pretty popular show. But I will at least be doing one show every week, every Sunday morning. That's right, I will be doing the Tinker Stinker Power Hour live, answering your questions, telling you who my sleepers are, going over injury reports, weather, and all of that. Other than that, I'm going to be working my ass off, being a dad, playing poker to raise money for this shit, so it ain't like I'm slacking off. I'm just making sure that I can have a show that I can help you with in the future. But even though my time is limited, those of you who sign up on Patreon, you'll still get your one-on-one fantasy advice every week, and that includes during the draft season. So go sign up now, and I'll help you draft the best damn team ever. Plus, help you every week with your decisions on who to drop, who to play, who to bench, who to pick up, who to trade for, etc., etc. Just $5 a month, and you get your own pocket guru. What more can you ask for? That's less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and a hell of a lot more valuable to you. You want to win the big bucks? I'll get you there for a pittance. Or hey, if free is more your price, keep watching this show. Put your questions in the comments, and I'll answer as many as I can. And don't forget to hit the like button, pound that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. Share with everyone you know. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. But enough of that horse shit, you're here for the rankings. And we're starting out with my top 50 running backs to draft in this 2023 season. Now, we haven't even started preseason football yet, so this is for the bold who are out there drafting now. So without a lot of stats to go by, I've done what I could. I've compiled the stats that I could. I've read tea leaves. I felt the one-eyed Jaguars balls. You know, whatever it is that I can channel the information that's needed to help you. So here we go. Let's go into it. After all that, here's what I came up with. I'm going to start off with my top 10 running backs to draft this season. Number 10, Ramondre Stevenson. This is a guy I've been hyped on ever since his rookie season a couple years back. I said maybe not this year, but in the future, this dude is going to be a top 10 fantasy back. Well, the future is now, folks. Last season, he had a snap share of 66% with Damian Harris in the mix. But with Harris out of the picture, that could go up to 70, maybe even 75% this season. And while I definitely expect him to improve upon last season's 49% share of the carries, it's the increase in his pass-catching game load that's giving me a stiffy for those extra snaps. Last season, he was second in target share for the Pats at 17%, only 1% behind Jacoby Myers at 18%. He was the running back 11 in fantasy points per game last season, and I expect him to crack the top 10 this year. I'd have him higher up on the board if it weren't for the fear of Bellatrix and the possibility of them bringing in another back like Dalvin Cook. When drafting this early, you have to bake those risks in, but as long as he's the guy for the Pats running game, he's at least a top 10 running back. And if I knew that he would stay that way, or that Billy Boy wasn't gonna fuck it up somehow, I'd have him a few spots higher. Number 9, Josh Jacobs. He was a league winner a year ago, the running back 3 no one saw coming. So why do I have him so far down the list? Because last season, the Raiders weren't all that great with Guyline and McBedshitter at the helm, and this season, they're just gonna hope that they don't get kicked out of the fucking league with Jimmy G. I suck donkey nuts overthrowing his receivers. Sorry, I'm a spurring 49ers fan. Defenses are gonna stack the box knowing Jimmy's gonna miss Devontae Adams by about 20 yards if he throws him a deep one. I still think Jacobs is an RB1 this season, but more toward the lower end than the higher end. I know he's currently waiting for a contract and could hold out, so there's a little risk baked in there, but not too much. I think he gets the deal done here. The Raiders have no other offensive weapons at this point because what good is Adams if the QB can't get him the fucking ball? Yeah, I know this has been a little fuck Jimmy G heavy at this point, but this offense is going to be abysmal, and that ain't going to do Josh Jacobs any favors. But if you can get him as your RB2, he's a steal. Number 8, Derrick Henry. Okay, listen, I get that he's King Henry, and it's possible that he's got some Frank Gore-like longevity in him as he's continued to put up monster numbers late in his 20s, despite being run into the ground like a Laverne, Tennessee policewoman, or the memes made about her. But he's 29, and this is where, historically speaking, we've seen even the best running backs drop off considerably. There are, of course, exceptions like Adrian Peterson, and Henry could be one of those to buck the trend. That's why I still have him ranked in the top 10. He was still a top 5 running back with over 1,500 rushing yards last season, but the Titans haven't done a lot to improve. They could be a bottom 5 team, and that means less carries for King Henry. Not saying he's running out of gas, but there are a couple of concerns there, so I have him ranked lower than he has been in recent years. Still a solid running back 1 you can get in the second round in a lot of drafts, and if he remains his kingly self, you got a steal on your hands. Number 7, Tony Pollard. He was the running back 8 last season, and with Zeke Elliott out of the picture, I think he's a mid-range RB1 once again. Now there's some rumors about the Cowboys being in the market for Dalvin Cook. Otherwise, I'd have him a spot or 2 higher. But if he's the guy, and the offense remains good and healthy this season, there's no reason this kid's numbers won't go through the roof. He ranked outside the top 25 in touches per game last year, and had only 39 receptions. But being the clear workhorse running back in this offense, I see those numbers going up tremendously. He's one of the more efficient backs in the game, going for 5.2 yards per carry last season. And even in the pass game, he's been efficient. His 9.5 yards per reception is one of the best clips among running backs last year. So with a bell cow workload and more involvement in the passing game, the 7 spot may be too conservative here, but the boys could still sign a big free agent back, so there's some caution mixed in with this ranking. But I may move him up after we get a better look in training camp and preseason. Hey, I'm no psychic, what do you want? You're the one drafted in fucking July. Get off my nuts. Number 6, Bijan Robinson. Now you know I'm not one to go overboard on drafting rookies. I was telling everyone to pump the brakes on CEH when his ADP lit on fire. And even though I love Ramondre Stevenson, I wasn't overdrafting him a couple years ago like so many were. I had Breece Hall and Isaiah Pacheco significantly lower than most analysts last season. Although I was high on Dameon Pierce until his ADP went nuts. Point is, I don't jump on rookie hype trains very often. Call me crazy, but I'm the Bijan Express to Titletown. Now, I'm not as high on him as some analysts who are about, this high on him are. Yeah, I know, a little much, I think. Considering Tyler Algier wasn't exactly a bust, and they still have Cordell Patterson, who broke out just a couple seasons ago. I can't imagine that Bijan gets all the running back touches in Atlanta, but he is considered the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley, and the Falcons had the best rated run blocking team last season. Desmond Ritter's going to be handing the ball off a lot in his first season as the Falcons starting QB. And with as efficient as they've been on the ground, they're likely to stick with that running game pretty heavily. They got a bevy of backs, but Bijan's the star attraction here. Dude can get it done with his legs. Last year, he's running behind a pretty lousy O-line in Texas, but still managed to rack up over 1,500 yards, averaging a beastly 6.1 yards per carry. He added 314 yards in the passing game as well, showing that much desired versatility integral to the success of modern running backs. He's going to be a superstar in Atlanta, especially as they improve the playoff contention over the next few years. This year, I think the end of the first round is a good spot for him. Atlanta needs to gel an offense under a new QB, and the Falcons don't want to burn their rookie out in year one, plus the rookie wall is a thing. And the Falcons still have two other highly talented backs still in the mix. Bijan will likely be a top 5, maybe even top 3 pick next season, but this season, I'm comfortable putting him in as my RB6 overall. Number 5, Nick Chubb. A mark of consistency. Chubb has put up solid mid-level RB1 numbers on a per-game basis since 2019. He's averaged over 5 yards per carry over his career, never once dipping below that mark in any season. He's been a solid, guaranteed 15 points per game for years, all while splitting carries with Kareem Hunt. Now, with Kareem Hunt gone to free agency, Chubb has an opportunity to finally get a workhorse level of touches on a Browns team that looks to improve with the QB putting past demons behind him and having added some weapons like Elijah Moore on the offense. Chubb will be open to go hard and jam himself down any hole. I mean through any hole. Man, I'm gonna hate when he retires and I can't make any more penis jokes at his expense. He was the running back 5 last season, and I've got him as the running back 5 here. He doesn't have the upside like some of these other guys, but if you like reliable fantasy points over the high ceiling of this next guy, I wouldn't bust your balls over it. Number 4, Jonathan Taylor.
Alright, so I did most of this before the news dropped about JT asking for a trade. And this ranking is based off of him being a happy player and all of that jazz. Colts owner Jim Irsay said that they ain't going to trade him, that they're going to let him go to free agency next season, and they plan to utilize him in their offense. So, you gotta operate based on what he said there. Based on what we know for right now, this is where I've got him. As long as he's gonna play, and I'm sure he will. I mean, he has no leverage here. He didn't hold out. So, if he wants to get paid, if he wants that big bag, he's gonna need to show what he's got. He's gotta seduce them suitors, you know? So, like I said, what I got here for you is based on that information, what we know now. Now, I know that the new trend is to not pay the running backs and just cycle through them. But I'm telling you, next season, there's going to be a team or two that are going to pay up for JT's expertise if he can showcase them this season. So it's not like he's going to sit around doing nothing. Anyway, enjoy.
This was the consensus number 1 pick in fantasy drafts last season, as JT's first couple of seasons had us all with visions of LaDainian Tomlinson running around in our heads. Also, we could be tremendously disappointed as JT's numbers sank right to the bottom of the ocean behind an offense that functioned about as well as an Ocean Gate submarine. Yeah, the injury bug didn't help, but even when healthy, his numbers didn't look quite as elite as his first couple of seasons. This prompted Indy to shake things up in the offseason, and I think this will work to JT's benefit. With a new coaching staff, new weapons, new quarterback, and an all-around new culture in the Colts locker room, and JT leading the way. He has the talent, the stats, the resume, everything needed to be a top 3 fantasy running back. With running back specialist and greatest damn name in the game, Jim Bob Cooter, as the OC, expect a lot of touches for Taylor, both in the backfield and catching passes out wide. No lingering issues from last year's injury, so I expect a full bounce back from JT this year. Don't hesitate to draft him around pick 5 or 6 in round 1. Dude's gonna get you your dividends. Number 3, Saquon Barkley. Everyone was afraid to pick Barkley very high in the draft last season, and I watched him drop to round 2 and in some cases round 3. Uzal was scared that his first year back with ACL injury was a telltale sign of what to expect going forward, while I was one of those saying not to sleep on a comeback from Saquon, and yeah, he bounced back just fine. Don't call it a comeback, he's been here for years,
And this season, the Giants have added some pivotal pieces around Barkley to help him knock out the competition. Yeah, I just made an early 90s LL Cool J reference. That's right, kids. The token black guy from NCIS was once one of the baddest rappers on the planet. Look it up. Anyway, coming off a season where he averaged just under 18 fantasy points per game and the 18th most receptions among running backs, and with his receptions and actually all stats going up each year since Danny Dimes has been the quarterback for the Giants, I see his numbers continuing to trend up once again, as he'll be entering what may be the peak of his career. The Giants aren't the toxic mess they were a couple years prior. Last season, they were much improved as a team overall, working together as a unit under 2022 NFL Coach of the Year, Brian Dable. With another year of cohesion and some new weapons added, I see big things for the Giants, and Saquon's gonna do some damage. He's top 3 for me, and if you think that's a hot take, check this out. Here's where the show goes full stop. Number 2, Christian McCaffrey.
Are you pulling my dick, bro?
Not at all, Mr. DeVito. Hear me out. When Christian McCaffrey's got the ball in his hands, great things happen. And for fantasy football managers, championships happen. When he's healthy and getting a monster workload, CMC is the unquestioned number 1 running back in fantasy football. It's those 2 caveats that have me concerned. The lesser of the 2 is injury. He's had a couple banged up years, but was relatively healthy last season. However, he is getting some age on him, and those injuries could catch up to him, especially on a 49ers team known for running back injuries. Coach Kyle Shanahan drives his running backs like a rich kid drives a Mercedes or fucks the cougar next door. Hard and fast. But we can't predict injuries. And with the Niners boasting a full array of talent on offense, they don't need to run McCaffrey into the ground, which brings me to my second concern, his workload. Yeah, he's getting paid, and Shanny's going to utilize his talents, but with so many weapons at the Niners' disposal, including another talented when healthy young running back, Eli Mitchell, CMC likely won't get the workload he was early on in his career with the Panthers. Shanahan likes to mix things up, and he's got the talent on the roster to do so. Debo, Kittle, Juszczyk, Ayuk, and the aforementioned Eli Mitchell. Now, I don't think this is going to be a running back by committee by any means, but last season, in the 4 games when Mitchell was in the lineup, Christian McCaffrey's rushing yards went from 75.77 per game to 38.5 per game. Rushing attempts dropped by 5 per game from 15.5 to 10.5, and his PPR fantasy points per game dropped from an average of 22.74 to 15.38. That's a nearly 7.5 fantasy point per game difference. Now, I don't think the difference will be quite as drastic this season, but enough to keep him out of the top spot. Yeah, he's still going to be a superstar, and if you draft him with the number 1 overall, you're likely going to be happy with the result. But with the way the 49ers run their offense, he's not going to get as heavy a workload as he was used to in Carolina. You want to think of a number 1? Fine, I have no problems with that. But when my top guy takes the crown for the 2nd year in a row, you better give me props. Speaking of which, my number 1 running back to draft in fantasy this season, Austin Eckler. That's right, I'm taking the fantasy football ambassador himself to repeat as the number 1 running back in fantasy this season. Why? Well, fuck, he said it himself. See? What more do you need? Analysis done. But I'll try to pad this up a bit. Last season, everyone was worried about Eckler's workload because of Josh Kelly's development and the Chargers drafting a talented yet troubled running back in Isaiah Spiller. I told you all to draft the hell out of Eck early in the 1st round because I wasn't concerned at all about a dip in production. Neither back ended up being a threat to Eck's carries or production, as he had a killer season, averaging 21.9 fantasy points per game in PPR thanks to an insane 107 catches on 132 targets. That's good for a wide receiver, and in fact, he was the top targeted player on the team. Yeah, I know that injuries to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams played a big role in this ludicrous target share, but Eckler has been a hybrid back and a PPR monster for a while, and I don't see that changing. Sure, a lot of analysts are worried about the addition of rookie Quentin Johnston, who I agree is going to be a force in this offense. He's certainly going to take some targets, and while I don't expect the same target share for Eckler as last season, I don't think this is going to be as big of a hit as some are expecting. Yeah, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are healthy, for now. But even though I'm not predicting injuries, it's almost hard not to say one or both of them is going to miss significant time, especially the injury-prone Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is also in danger of receiving that tag. I at least consider him an injury risk. So while I almost guarantee that Eckler's pass-catching numbers will go down, it's not going to be by that much. Plus, his workload as a rusher could increase, or at least stay about the same as last season. In the touchdown department, 13 is going to be hard for him to repeat. Then again, he did get 12 the year before, so it's not that far-fetched. And despite the high number of receptions, he only had 5 receiving touchdowns compared to 8 the previous year. I expect around 20 total touchdowns from Mack and probably about 1,500 to 1,600 all-purpose yards. And let's say 90 to 95 receptions. That's good enough for RB1 numbers and a little bit above my expectations for CMC. So that's why I've got Austin Eckler as your number 1 running back to draft in 2023.
Alright, so there's your top 10. Now let's go with the rest of the top 50 here. Now I'm not going to go over every player. This video's long enough as it is. I'll give you a few highlights here and there.
Najee Harris finds his way just outside the top 10 for me. I think he bounces back this year as second-year QB Kenny Pickett's going to have another offseason to prepare with his team and his first one as the starting QB. This is going to make the offense better and open things up for Najee. He was the RB14 last season, so I'm not out of my tree here. Cam Akers is a highly talented running back who had an unfortunate injury that's taken him some time to recover. He had top 3 potential before that, and he's finally all good, ready to go. So don't sleep on this guy. The ADP for this kid is running back 24, but he's a top 20 running back in my mind. If you get him as your RB3, he'll stay married to your flex spot. Just watch. J.K. Dobbins is in a similar spot. Big-time potential, but we've seen even less of him than Cam. He had a bad first year back like we've seen with these complicated knee injuries. Is he going to bounce back like Saquon, or will he never return to his peak performance and eventually lose his job to Gus Edwards? This isn't where I think he lands, but more the middle ground of the polar spots that he could land. Alvin Kamara will likely miss at least 6 games at some point this season due to the assault charges he's facing from the incident in Las Vegas, according to all sources I've seen. That's baked into this ranking. Remember that. Miles Sanders, he's so hard to predict. He's another guy whose numbers could really fall anywhere from the top 10 to outside the top 30. We really don't know how the Panthers are going to operate under the helm of rookie QB Bryce Young. And while they could lean on Sanders a lot, defenses will be stacking the box to force the rook to throw. Also, the Panthers are likely to be cat shit this season, so they might not be able to lean on said running game. It's a messy situation that'll get better as time goes on, but maybe not this season. Too much could go wrong to put a lot of trust in him. Solid RB3 still, though. I've been all about Khalil Herbert getting an opportunity to be the guy since I first saw him dazzle in his rookie season. When given the opportunity, he was a better back than David Montgomery for the Bears. I might even be too low on him here, as I think Herbert has the potential to be a top 20 back. He's fast, elusive, and young. This could be a breakout season for him. Moving on to the rest of the top 50, I'll have to update these rankings when Dalvin Cook signs a deal somewhere, but for now, I have him just outside the top 30. It's a good chance that wherever he goes, he's going to be splitting time, or even worse, sitting on the bench as a backup. He'll be a valuable asset in fantasy, but how valuable will depend on where he goes. Stay tuned. Zach Charbonnet's not really going to be a weekly starting fantasy back, and he'll likely play as a spoiler to Kenneth Walker owners, if anything. His talent and potential if Walker gets hurt, though, makes him a worthy stash and handcuff. Samaje Perine will skyrocket up the board if it turns out Java Williams is still out at the start of the season. If you draft Java, make it a priority to get Perine too, despite the fact that his last name sounds like a combination of 2 words for piss. Jeff Wilson is the front runner for the top running back spot on the Dolphins, unless someone like Dalvin or Zeke Elliott signs on. But he's splitting time with Raheem Mostert and rookie Devin Achane. So no matter what, I ain't drafting this guy unless it's like for the end of my bench. Hard to see him carving out a big enough role to justify a higher ranking.
So there you go, my preseason rankings. Now I hope that helps. I wanted to get this out for you so you know I'm not flaking, and I'll have the rest of the positions up in the next week or two. I've got to do some tweaks. I got to fix a lot of things. Stuff's going to be changing out of nowhere, and you're going to be like, what happened? Where'd that voice come from? Trust me, you're going to love it. But it's going to take some time. So you got to watch this show, pull back like a caterpillar in its cocoon so that it can metamorphosize into the beautiful butterfly or angry-ass moth It's meant to be. Anyway, I'm going to have each position of my top 200 overall, plus some other shows coming here and there. Stay tuned. Hit the notifications bell so you don't miss any of it. Hit like if you like this show. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And without any further ado, in honor of the late, great Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman, hey, today's secret word, goodbye. There it is, pal. Left a little bit to pour out for him later. What can I say? Anyway, thanks for tuning in once again. Hopefully this helps. Stay tuned for the next episodes coming out. If you want one-on-one advice, if you got some drafts coming up right away, hit me up on Patreon and I'll help you out. You know you need a pocket guru if you're going to win the big bucks, so hit me up. Also, we got some spaces left over in the hashtag Tyrant Gang Dynasty League and season-long leagues. So hit me up either in the comments or get to me however you can on Facebook or whatever. Let me know if you're interested, and I'll give you the details. So until the next episode, I'm out. Peace.